Okay, let's talk brainstorming again, briefly. So, we're trying to brainstorm things for our launcher. Rather than just going around from one person to the next and struggling to say something, remember, brainstorming is about talking out loud, it's about coming up with anything. So, for most of us, we need a starting point. For my starting point, I'm going to go with this. What am I starting with? What are my materials? So, I've got paper. I've got the clips, the binder clips. I've got tape. I've got, let's see, what else do I have? I have rubber bands, RBs, we'll say. Okay, so now starting from there, we can go in a couple directions. We can talk about the actual structure, right? What are things that launch other things? So we could think about some sort of blowgun. We could think about some sort of crossbow. We could think about a catapult. We could think about a cannon of some sort. We could think about a ramp, right? Have it roll down. We could think about got crossbow, catapult, trebuchet is a different kind of catapult. All right, so now let's think about some materials. Paper, what can I do with the paper? Well, okay, I can stack, right? Get a thick stack so it'll be very structurally strong. I could roll the paper, right, to make like little beams or something that I could then, stick together, connect somehow. I could clip these things actually, right? I could clip a stack of paper together to get a nice thick staircase platform. Tape I can use for the roll. Rubber band I could use for a crossbow or even for a catapult. Anything else that we could maybe do? The clips we could use for like some sort of stand, like clip them both down and then connect them somehow. We could use the clips as a kind of trigger, right? All right. So notice that I've got quite a few things down. Are all of them useful? No. Right? Cannon we can get rid of. Blowgun, we're not supposed to be doing this ourselves, right? We're not supposed to be throwing it or launching it like that. It's we can start it, we can trigger it, but we should not be part of the machine. So blowgun is also out. But that said, it's not a bad place to stop. Keep in mind, you can always brainstorm again, right? Go back, refine some of these ideas, talk about what they really mean, come up with a new sort of starting list, and then go back around again. Next, we should talk about setting up our decision matrix. Okay, so we've brainstormed, came up with some ideas. We've used a decision matrix to choose from those ideas. Now we have to start planning out what we're going to do, right? There's really three things we need to plan. We need to plan how to build the actual thing, right? What's the structure it's going to have. We need to plan how we're going to assemble it. Who's going to do what? If it's a big major project, I'm going to want to say to my partners, Mr. Stevenson number one, you need to do this part. Mr. Stevenson number two, you need to, find the wheels and put them together. Mr. Stevenson number three, you're going to build the arm for the catapult or whatever. If it's super simple and you really only need one person doing something, well, what do the others do? They watch what you do, right? They record it so that if you make changes as you go, you'll have a record of it. So speaking of that, let's talk plans. When I'm setting this up in my notebook, and remember we always want to label it, so plans for the launcher, I'm going to want to put the date on it if it's a new date. So date I started it, the plans for the launcher, and I'm actually going to do a little subsection here. I'm going to say these are my initial plans, and then these are changes. I'm just going to leave some space here to go back because it's possible that what I built might not work at all, right? I might think that making stuff into tubes will make it stronger, but it doesn't function. So initial plans is I'm going to make let's see, 10 tubes of paper. And then I'm going to tape them into a large tube. So I'll have, tube of paper, 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 all making a giant bundle. Then I will tape that together. So, and as I do this, I'm going to label what each thing is. So that's tape going around it. Where my goal is to have anybody else be able to look at this and make the exact same thing I did. And that's a lot harder than it sounds, right? We tend to draw something and we look at it and we know what it means, so it's perfectly clear to us. A good way to test this, double check, is maybe go to another group and say, what do you think this is? What do you think it looks like? And if they squint and scratch their heads and say, I don't know, grenade launcher, when it's actually supposed to be, a shoe storage rack, then maybe you need to go back and clarify those drawings. All right, so I've got a label, I've got a drawing, I've got instructions, and let's just say that's all I'm going to build in this case. My goal is just to get a big stable rod of something, I don't know, because I don't want to do your project for you. So there I could stop, right? And then if I have any problems when I'm actually trying to build it, then I can go and add those in here in this space. And what do I do if at the end of it all I make no changes and I think this is perfect, right? I've shown it to other people and they're like, clear as day. Well, of course, I can always just cross something out and sign it so that when I get my page witnessed, when I'm done, this is properly shown to not have anything in it, or it could be filled in. We'll see. All right, next up we need to talk about assembly and testing, and then we should be ready to build. Okay, let's talk about decision matrix. Based on my brainstorm from before, can we see this? Can you see this? Can you see it? Let me shiny a little bit. Seems all right. All right, so I've got three options after my brainstorm that I think might be worth using. I've got making some sort of crossbow using the rubber band to launch. I've got making some sort of catapult, right? And I've got making some sort of ramp, where I would just put it at the top and let gravity do the rest of the work. So how do I pick among these? Well, all right, so I've got three options. So I really need three categories. I've got the crossbow, I've got the catapult, and I've got the ramp. Okay, well, how do I want to measure this? Well, in any decision matrix, we are looking for the things that matter for the project. Now, there is no budget on this project, right? It doesn't say that you are limited in the amount of stuff you can use. So it wouldn't make sense to use that as an option to evaluate these. Could we? Yeah, but it's not helpful, so why bother? So what is helpful? Well, we want distance, right? That's what we're going for. It has to go at least 3 feet, and there is a reward if we can get it to go even further. So we've got that. What else matters? Well, we have to build it in class. We have a limited amount of time. So the time it would take to build it, right? And then maybe anything else? Well, I have to say probably complexity, right? The more complex something is, the more ways it can go wrong. So complexity, and you know what, I'm going to add one thing on here. Not just complexity, but also, what was I going to say? So distance, how far it goes, time, how long it takes to make it, complexity. Actually, I think these three are good enough for now. So I'm going to be lazy, and I'm going to rank these, right? 1 through 3. I'm going to say 1 is good and 3 is bad or the worst. All right. So in terms of distance, well, the ramp is probably not the best, right? So I'll give that the 3. The bow versus the catapult. Well, you know, catapults can do a lot, but given the limitations on my supplies, I'm stuck with paper. I don't think I can build one that's very big, and therefore I don't think I can build one that's super strong that can really fling it a long distance. So I'm going to rate that at 2. Now the crossbow or bow and arrow or whatever, that's using the rubber band. And the rubber bands are pretty thick and strong, so I'm going to give that 1 for probably it'll send it the furthest distance. Time to build. Well, honestly, the ramp is probably the easiest one to build. I think probably that's our first choice. Now the catapult, I would have to use the paper and like roll it or fold it to make the different parts. So I think this actually would take the longest. Whereas the bow, all I really need is some way to stick it in place and have it be strong enough that it can hold the rubber band out, with tension on it. So when I pull back, it stays where it is in order to launch the paper. So I would say this is actually in second place. And then kind of going off of this, complexity is also the same, right? The longer it takes to make it, it's probably because it's more complex. So actually in this case, I'm kind of doubling down on how important this is. So let's sum across, right? Just like in sum the ranks. I've got 1, 2, 2 for a total of 5. I've got 2, 3, 3 for a total of 8. And then I've got a 3, 1, 1 for a total of 5. And so these two are tied. And I'm going to let the distance that it would go be the real deal breaker here, right? I want to be eligible to beat everybody else. I want it to go as far as possible. I like shooting stuff with rubber bands. It's more fun. So actually, and that's something else we could include in the decision matrix, fun. So I'm going to go with the bow is my idea. All right, so notice in your notebook, you're going to want the decision matrix itself. You're going to want to say how you did it. Did you rank or rate these? So I should really label them all. I've got showing that low numbers are good, high numbers are bad. I've got everything summed up, and I'm going to say there was a tie between bow and ramp. The bow is more fun. We will do the bow. All right, we'll do some sort of crossbow launcher. Makes sense. All right, double check your rubric. Make sure you're hitting everything that is needed on there.